Okay, let's get right into it. We're talking about Watergate. It's, without a doubt, one of the biggest and most tangled political scandals in American history. And it's a story that has absolutely everything. We're talking spies, secret tapes, and a cover-up that went all the way to the Oval Office.
But here's the central mystery, the thing that people still can't get over. How on earth did a single, kind of clumsy crime, a break-in that the White House at the time just brushed off as a third-rate burglary, even happen? And maybe more importantly,
how did that one event spiral so far out of control that it ended with the first and, so far, only resignation of a sitting U.S. president? That is the wild story we're going to unpack right now.
So, to do that, we have to start at the very beginning, with the crime itself, the one that lit the fuse on this whole political bombshell.
Picture this. It's the middle of the night, June 17, 1972. Cops get a call to the Watergate Hotel and office complex in Washington, D.C. They go inside the Democratic National Committee's main office, and they find 5 guys who clearly aren't supposed to be there. At first glance, it just looks like a regular old burglary. But, as we all know now, it was anything but simple.
Now, to understand why those guys were in there, we need to rewind the clock just a little bit. The political mood back then was incredibly tense. The Vietnam War was raging, the country was split right down the middle, and the Nixon White House felt like it was constantly under attack, especially after the Pentagon Papers got leaked. And this paranoia led them to create some very secretive, very shady groups.
So first, you had a group known as the White House Plumbers. Yeah, the Plumbers. This was a secret team full of guys like ex-CIA agent E. Howard Hunt and ex-FBI agent G. Gordon Liddy. Their whole job was to plug information leaks coming out of the White House, and they were told to do it by any means necessary.
And then there was CRP. That stands for the Committee to Re-elect the President. This was Nixon's official 1972 campaign team, but they were playing really dirty. They had a secret slush fund that they used to pay for intelligence gathering operations against their political rivals. And, you guessed it, CRP was the group that gave the green light to bug the DNC headquarters at the Watergate.
So, with the burglars in jail, the trail leading back to the White House was like a ticking time bomb. The administration's first move wasn't to fess up. No way. It was to build a wall of denial. The cover-up started almost instantly. And right away, you get this crazy split-screen reality going on. On one side, you've got the White House telling the public, we had nothing to do with this. But behind closed doors, President Nixon himself is ordering the CIA to tell the FBI to back off its investigation. Meanwhile, on the other side, investigators and reporters are pulling on threads. The FBI quickly connects the burglars to E. Howard Hunt, one of the plumbers, and a money trail starts to lead straight to the committee to re-elect the president.
Now, this is where 2 young reporters from the Washington Post, Bob Woodward and Carl Bernstein, enter the story. They were just relentless, following every single one of those threads. And they were getting help from a top-secret source they called Deep Throat, who kept confirming what they were finding. It took decades, but we eventually found out Deep Throat was actually Mark Felt, the number 2 guy at the FBI.
You know, despite all this incredible reporting, Nixon won re-election in a massive landslide in November of '72. For a little while there, it really looked like they were going to get away with the whole thing. But the next year, the Senate launched its own investigation, and that's when the story took a wild turn. All because of some secret audio recordings. The first real bombshell came from inside the White House itself. John Dean, who was the president's own lawyer, testified to Congress under oath that President Nixon was directly involved in the cover-up. I mean, what an accusation. But at the end of the day, it was still his word against the president's. They needed hard proof.
And then, just like that, they got a lead. During his testimony, a White House aide named Alexander Butterfield just casually mentioned that, oh yeah, President Nixon has a secret voice-activated taping system running in the Oval Office. And just like that, the entire investigation had a new focus. They had to get those tapes.
Well, Nixon flat out refused to hand over the recordings. He claimed executive privilege, which is basically the idea that a president can keep some things private. When the special prosecutor, a guy named Archibald Cox, wouldn't back down, Nixon ordered him fired. This kicked off a full-blown constitutional crisis that became known as the Saturday Night Massacre. First, his attorney general refused the order and resigned on the spot. Then the deputy attorney general also refused, and he got fired. The public was outraged. It looked like a blatant attempt to shut down the investigation.
In the middle of all this chaos, Nixon goes on TV and delivers one of the most famous lines in American political history. He was trying to calm the nation down, but for a lot of people, his actions were speaking way, way louder than his words. When the White House was finally forced to turn over some of the tapes, the scandal just got deeper. A really important conversation had a mysterious gap in it, an 18-and-a-half-minute gap. The official story was that his secretary accidentally erased it. Nobody was buying it, and that gap became this huge symbol of the cover-up.
The legal battle for the rest of the tapes went all the way to the Supreme Court, who unanimously ordered Nixon to release them. And in that batch was the final nail in the coffin, what everyone calls the smoking gun tape. It was a recording from just a few days after the break-in, and it proved without any doubt that Nixon knew all about the White House connection and had personally approved the plan to use the CIA to stop the FBI's investigation. That was it. There was no way to deny it anymore.
Once that tape went public, the game was up. I mean, the president's support in Congress just evaporated, literally overnight. At that point, there was only one way this could end.
And man, the end came fast. Just look at this timeline. In late July 1974, the Supreme Court orders the tapes to be released. Just a couple of weeks later, on August 8th, facing a guaranteed impeachment and conviction, Richard Nixon resigns. And then, 1 month after that, the new president, Gerald Ford, gives Nixon a full pardon, which meant he could never be charged with a crime for any of it.
The fallout from Watergate left a huge scar on the country. It led to the only presidential resignation we've ever had and put a lot of Nixon's top aides behind bars. It also forced Congress to pass new laws about campaign money and government ethics, and it completely inspired a new generation of journalists to dig deep and hold power accountable.
But maybe the biggest legacy is how the scandal just shattered the relationship between the American people and their government. It created this deep sense of distrust that, honestly, you can still feel today. So the real question it leaves us with isn't just about what happened back then, but it's about how those events are still shaping the political world we're all living in right now.